I apologize, everyone. I did not mean to end the meeting for all. I just meant to leave on my phone. That's not how it worked out. And so now we have a new part 2 of this show that will now probably go another 3 hours because of technical issues.
It's all right. But yeah, we were talking about the Chargers wide receivers. Yeah. They, I don't know. Obviously, Keenan Allen's the number one. But after him, I don't know. I feel like the number 2 spot's open, and then obviously the rest of the depth chart would be open after that. But yeah, I definitely think that we will see their draft pick there. I think he'll see significant time this year.
Yeah, I agree. Tight end, 2 guys here at this position. Replacement for Hunter Henry, they get Jared Cook over from the Saints. I like that addition. Veteran presence for Justin Herbert. And Cook,
he's got butterfingers,
but he's not slowed down. He's been productive everywhere he's went. So wouldn't be surprised if he has another productive campaign with the Chargers this year, even at age 34.
Well, I still got a grudge against him because he dropped that pass in the playoffs. So I don't like him anymore.
The other tight end I have starred is 3rd-round rookie out of Georgia, Trey McKitty. Again, when we were going over their draft, he was suspect. We had no idea why they drafted him in the 3rd round. It was pretty high for him. So, yeah, but that's fine. He's a big body, and the Wi-Fi cut out, and then I got it back on eventually, but it was a while that it cut out. I don't know what happened. But yeah, I mean, he's a big body, has definite athletic traits. I think it's going to be good for him to be the 3rd tight end this year. The only issue is he might actually end up being the 2nd tight end behind Jared Cook because Donald Parham is their backup right now, and he's had injury issues throughout his career. Granted, he's only played 1 season in the NFL. But yeah, they got a lot of size at tight end. I'm not sure what Cook's measurables are. I know Parham's 6'8", McKitty's 6'5", I believe.
I think Cook's around 6'5" too, 6'6", something like that.
Line. Just like the Chiefs, the Chargers redid their offensive line this offseason as well. They had Mike Pouncey retire at center. But starting off, going from left to right, new left tackle, that is Rashawn Slater, their 1st-round pick, 13th overall. The steal of the draft.
Yeah, they got really lucky with that
13th overall. That's why he was the 13th pick. Lucky 13, right?
Mm-hmm.
Left guard, they get Matt Filer over from the Steelers. Solid, not the greatest, but has been very good for the Steelers throughout his career so far. The biggest guy they got, center Corey Linsley. That was, a Pro Bowler for a Pro Bowler at the center position. Corey Linsley coming over from the Packers. He was by far the best center in free agency this year. And then right guard, they got Oday Abalshi from the Texans. Definitely the weak spot on the offensive line is right guard.
Yep.
But they drafted 5th-round rookie Brendan James out of Nebraska to help try to solidify that weakness as well.
Well, yeah, I know all too much about Aboushi because he was a Jet before he was a Texan, and yeah, I hated him as a Jet because he was that bad. So I'm really surprised he's lasted in the league this long. And there's going to be a lot of defensive linemen getting through that part of the line there, I think. But yeah, other than him though, I think that their line is really solid. It's like they definitely patched up a lot of the holes that they've had in the past few years. And even with losing a guy like Trey Turner, who they probably could have used instead of a guy like Aboushi, but yeah, I think that they have a very solid line, and yeah, we'll have to see how that goes. But I think that Herbert won't have to worry too much.
I agree. The Steelers essentially traded Matt Filer for Trey Turner.
Pretty much.
Yeah, the only other starter we didn't talk about, Brian Balaga. He is the only returning starter on the Chargers offensive line. So defense, I don't have any starters starred. That's because all of the guys, I believe they're returning almost all of their starters on defense. Derwin James obviously coming back from injury once again. Let's see if he can actually play a 17 game season now. And one added game, he couldn't play 16 games the last few years. Now he has to play 17. So, also Michael Davis, he replaces Casey Hayward as the opposite of Chris Harris Jr. So we'll see how he does in an elevated role. But yeah, I have backups starred though. Starting on the defensive line, they're not deep at all. The main backups right now for defensive line, Joe Gaziano is the backup to Jerry Tillery at left defensive end. He's an undrafted free agent in 2020, only played 2 games ever. Frederick Smith Jr., he is the backup to Linval Joseph at nose tackle. And I don't even know anything about him because Pro Football Reference doesn't even have him in their system. And that's where I get all my, draft statuses of guys from and history of guys. Yeah, I was like, wow, they don't even have this guy. That's when you know you are no. And then the backup for Justin Jones at the right DN spot is Cortez Broughton. He was actually a draft pick from the Chargers, 7th round in 2019, has played 11 career games there. So, yeah, they're pretty screwed if one of the top 3 guys goes down. The only one I will say is that they do have Christian Covington as a 3rd string right defensive end right now. And we've seen him play with the Texans specifically. I remember him from, I don't remember if he played with anyone else, but I remember Christian Covington from the Texans. So he might be able to help out or possibly win one of the backup jobs. Linebacker, the backup to Joey Bosa at weak side outside right now is Jesse Lemonnier, but I don't think it will be him. Kyler Fackrell is listed as the 3rd string strong side outside linebacker. So I think Kyler Fackrell will ultimately be Joey Bosa's backup, not Lemonnier. So,
yeah,
the only other guy,
like you said, hopefully they don't really need to use their backups too much. Because if they do, that means that their defense is going to crumble.
Yeah. I mean, I like their Kyler Fackrell is pretty solid, but the only other guy I have at the linebackers was Kenneth Murray's backup, uh, Emike Egbule, sixth round draft pick of the Chargers in 2019, has played 29 career games. Probably not on defense, but he's played in 29 career games in his 2 seasons. So at least he's played. That's the big thing. And then last guy for the Chargers defense, Nasir Adderley's backup at free safety. Seventh round rookie Mark Webb out of Georgia. Don't have much to say about Mark Webb. He wasn't the greatest, but that's why it was seventh round pick. So
Yeah.
All right. Fantasy wise, Justin Herbert. Dude, we called it last year. We said Justin Herbert was going to have a great season in year one, and he did. It took him a couple games to get on the field. Thank you, athletic trainer. And your next needle to Tyrod's lung. But yeah, I mean, I was very excited that, we drafted him in Dynasty last year. He worked out.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
I think he's a top.
He's the definition of what I was talking about before when we talked about Mahomes. He's the kind of guy that I would target in the middle rounds. He is that stereotypical, what you're going to get from him, and he's going to put up points every week. You don't have to worry about, is he going to have a good game? Is he going to have a bad game? If he performs the way he did in his rookie year, which I know there's the whole superstition of the sophomore slump or whatever, but I don't think that's going to affect him. I think he'll have a solid season and possibly even break his records from last year, because now he has a full season plus an extra game to play. Although I don't know how that's going to really affect fantasy. I assume fantasy is still going to be in the same weeks, maybe another week later. But I think that he's going to be one of the top fantasy quarterbacks, I think.
Yeah. Like I said, I think top 8 right now to start the season. We might see him be going earlier. But the thing is he could become a top 5 fantasy because he runs the ball too. I like the comparison of Josh Allen and Justin Herbert. I think that's pretty good.
Mm-hmm. And I think another reason why he's going to do even better than he did last year is his starting running back is now back with him too for the full season.
Yeah. I'm still not an Austin Eckler guy, which we'll get into right now.
Yeah.
I don't like any of their running backs. I know I've been wrong about Austin Eckler because he's produced, but he's coming off injury, like you said, or he did have injury last year. He was in and out, it felt like. But yeah, I'm not touching any of the Chargers running backs. I don't like them that much.
I mean, you were high on him last year, though. You had him, I think, as your 7th best fantasy running back when we did that show. But I do believe in him if he could stay on the field. I mean, part of it is me being biased and hoping he does it or has a good season because he is one of my dynasty running backs alongside Nick Chubb. So the two of them, I'm kind of riding on their backs there, hoping that they can bring me to the promised land. But yeah, I think that Eckler will do great. The only thing I have to say with Eckler, though, is I feel like Herbert probably won't do the checkdowns like what Rivers used to do with him. He's not going to do that as much. So I think that most of Eckler's points will be on the ground rather than through the air.
Yeah, before we go further on the Chargers fantasy outlook, just want to say congrats on a fantastic career. Ted Ginn Jr., he just called it quits. 9th overall pick in the 07 draft, 14 seasons. He caught 33 touchdowns, ran for 2, and had 7 return touchdowns in his career. So go for Ted Ginn. Was he a part? He was a part of the Saints Super Bowl team, right?
No, I don't think so.
No,
he was on the team over the last couple of years, but I don't think he was on the team back then.
who did he get drafted by? Oh, the Dolphins. That's right. All right.
He was with them. He was with the Saints. Wasn't he with Carolina too at one point? I feel like.
Yes, he was on their Super Bowl team. Yeah. He was probably the main catalyst to getting the Panthers to the Super Bowl. Yeah. So first 3 seasons with the Dolphins, went to San Francisco, played 3 years with them, was in Carolina in 2013, went to Arizona in 14, came back to the Panthers in 2015, went to the Super Bowl that year with them, played with them in 2016 as well, went to the Saints for 3 seasons, and finished up 2020 with the Chicago Bears.
Yeah. He was definitely one of the most underrated players over the last 15 years. I mean, I didn't realize that he was drafted that high. I thought he was like a mid-round pick or something, because you don't usually see guys that are drafted like that. You don't really see them being like the top special teams guy in the league. Normally they're like the number 1 receiver on a team and they don't really move around that much, but he was a journeyman guy that was his main weapon was in special teams. I mean, you said he had the 7 touchdowns, which I know that's not the record, but I'm sure it's up there in terms of the top guys with special teams touchdowns.
Well, I think his best asset was his speed.
Well, yeah.
He was a burner. I mean, granted, I remember back to the Super Bowl year with the Panthers. That's what helped Cam a lot. Cam threw so many deep balls to Ted Ginn that year. And what's crazy about it is that wasn't even his best statistical season of his career, receptions wise, anyways. 2016 with the Panthers, or no, actually, 08 with the Dolphins was his best statistical season is in terms of receptions and yards. 56 receptions for 790 yards in 08. But 10 touchdowns with Carolina in 2015. That's what I'm saying, though.
That's almost a third of his touchdowns.
Average, yeah. What's his yards per reception? Oh, yeah. Yards per reception 2015, 16.8. By far his biggest, his best in his career. But yeah, overall, 412 receptions, 5,742 yards, 33 touchdowns. Receiving, rushing, he carried it 68 times for 486 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then where are the return statistics? Of course, I don't see the return statistics. Oh, there it is. 262 punt returns, 2,624 yards, 4 touchdowns. And then kick returns, he had 307 for 6,899 yards and 3 touchdowns. So, yeah. About 9,500 total return yards in his career and 7 touchdowns on 569 returns. Pretty solid career. But anyways, Chargers, depth charts, or fantasy, I mean. We're on to tight end. Or no, we're on to wide receivers. Yep. Keenan Allen. I love Keenan Allen, man. Keenan is probably the most underrated number 1 wide receiver in the league.
Yeah, he especially on the team that he's on, like we were saying when we were going over their depth chart, they don't really have much behind him. So he's going to get a bulk of the targets, especially also since now they don't really have that number 1 reliable tight end. I mean, they signed Jared Cook and whatnot, but again, I'm not really high on him. So I think that Keenan Allen is in for a huge season this year. But I think you're going to get a lot of good value for him in fantasy because, like we said, he's one of the more underrated number 1s in the league. So he's going to drop to the middle rounds. And like whoever ends up getting him is going to get a solid potential number 2 receiver. I mean, I know I was able to do that a couple of years ago when I got Amari Cooper, and then I went back and got Keenan Allen in like the next round. So if you're able to get him as your number 2 receiver, then you have possibly the best wide receiver duo in your fantasy league. But yeah, I expect him to have a big season right alongside his quarterback.
Yeah, I think the sweet spot for Keenan Allen is probably 5th, 6th round. Mm-hmm. Probably where you get him. Mike Williams. I have a very interesting relationship with Mike Williams when it comes to fantasy football. Now, he's been a part of my dynasty team since he got drafted by the Chargers in 2017. And he's just never been it. You keep hearing Mike Williams is going to do this and Mike Williams is going to do that. It has not came to fruition so far. So I would advise against drafting Mike Williams. If you have to, you can, because he still is getting number 2 wide receiver target share. But I would not do it.
Yeah. I'm on the same boat with you. Like you said, when he was coming out of college, I thought he was going to be like the next big thing coming out of Clemson. I think he came from, right? And mm-hmm. But yeah, right now he's the number 2. But like I said before, I think his job might be in jeopardy, at least in terms of the depth chart. I don't think his job is in jeopardy in terms of getting cut, but I think he has a real chance of losing some targets to one of those other guys that's behind him right
now. All right, Jared Cook. I like him as a tight end too. I think he's pretty solid. Upper echelon of the tight end too.
Yeah, I'm not touching him though, because like I keep saying, I'm still mad at him for dropping the pass in the playoffs last year. But yeah, I think he has upside, especially in that offense. but we'll have to see with that. But yeah, I would draft him as my backup tight end right now.
Yeah, I think Justin Herbert likes tight ends. That's why we saw Hunter Henry have a pretty good season last year. Defensively, this defense is interesting. They have the pieces, I think, to be a good defense.
Mm-hmm.
But like we talked about, other than the secondary, their front seven is very thin. Which I know usually I don't take that into account in fantasy. But I am now. So I think they're a good backup defense. I wouldn't, at least at the start of the season, draft them as your top, your starter.
Yeah, I mean, I have them as one of my two defenses in our dynasty league, and I think they're good in the role that I have them in, which is the rotational. I just basically decide which one of my two defenses I like better each week, and my other defense is Green Bay. So I think that they can be a solid defense, but I mean, at least personally, I wouldn't play them against Kansas City, either one of those two games. So that's already two games that you probably can't use them in. And then I can't think of who else they play off the top of my head, but well, I think they play the Ravens too and the Cowboys. Those are two high-powered offenses too. So I don't know, but yeah. So they have a tough schedule this year in terms of opposing offenses, but I still think that they are a serviceable defense. I think they're better than the Chiefs defense for sure.
Yeah, I agree.
They're definitely a rosterable defense.
Forgot to say about kicker for the Chiefs. One of the top fantasy kickers there is, Harrison Butker.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't have to spend too much time on him. He's a starter through and through.
Top 3 kicker.
Top 5 kicker. 3, okay. Now, your boy here with the Chargers, Michael Badgley.
Sorry, Mike.
What are you thinking?
I'm not drafting you. I'm not going anywhere near him right now because he was one of the worst starting kickers in the league last year. Because he just doesn't have that big of a leg. So you're not going to get a lot of 5-point kicks from him. The only thing I will say, though, is I think that this Chargers offense as a whole will be a solid scoring offense, which will lead to more extra points for him to do. But still, I would only use him right now as a kicker to pick up when yours is on a bye. That's the only way I would use him right now. But if he starts to show throughout the beginning of the season and into the middle of the season that he can be a consistent and high-scoring kicker, then I would possibly pick him up.
Yeah, definitely accuracy has become an issue the last year or so. All right, that's the Chargers. Moving on to the Raiders. Now, the Raiders, I hate whoever put together their printable schedule, right? Because it just completely one ear and out the other. How they set this thing up. Because usually, I'm used to just going down the line of the schedule and marking off W or L. And I started doing that. And then I went to their bye week, and I'm like, wait, this does not add up. The games before the bye. And then I realized they go left to right each line. I was like, I hate people who ever put together this printable schedule. So, anyways, we'll start off here. A loss to the Ravens. They lose in Pittsburgh. They lose to the Dolphins. They lose at LA to the Chargers. They beat the Bears. They lose in Denver. They beat the Eagles. 2-5 at week 8 bye week. It does get better, though. A little bit, anyways. They win in East Rutherford against the Giants. They beat the Chiefs at home. They beat the Bengals at home. They lose at AT&T Stadium against the Cowboys. They lose against Washington. They lose in Kansas City. Lose at Cleveland. Then they beat the Broncos. They lose at Indianapolis, and they win against the Chargers week 18. That gets you 7-10 for the Raiders.
All right. So I think that they are going to I don't know. I think that they're going to have a little bit better of a record than what you said, but I think that they're going to be same division record as you, 3-3, splitting with all three teams. The week 1, yeah, that's a loss. I think that they will beat Miami, though. They will lose in LA. And then was Philly the next game? Or what was the next game?
The Bears, week 5.
Okay, yeah, they'll beat the Bears.
At Denver.
Denver. Then what's next?
You broke up a little bit. I had at Denver, home against the Eagles, bye week 8.
Wait, the Eagles are after Denver?
Yes.
All right, wait. So, yeah, the Eagles, I think they lose to the Eagles. And then they come out of their bye week and who?
Then it's at the Giants, home against the Chiefs, home against the Bengals, the next 3.
So I think they go. Wait, it was home against the Chiefs or at the Chiefs?
Home.
So I think they win that one, and they sweep those 3 games, I think.
And then it's at Dallas, home against Washington, at Kansas City.
And then I think they lose all 3 of those.
And then finish up at Cleveland, home against the Broncos, at Indianapolis, and then home against the Chargers.
They split those 4. So they're it would have them 8-9. So 1 better than you.
All right. Not too bad. Usually, I usually am high on the Raiders. I usually like them, but like we've been saying, the first 2 teams, this AFC West schedule is ridiculous this year. So key games for me, though, week 1 against Baltimore. That's, playoff team. Steelers in Pittsburgh. There's no way they win that. But it's playoff team. Week 3, the Dolphins. I know you have them beating the Dolphins. I like the Dolphins this year. I think Dolphins are a playoff team. At the Chargers, week 4. Another tough one in division at LA. Next third one I have. Week 9 coming out of the bye. That's at the Giants. I think that's actually a possible loss. The Giants might be able to trap game them right there. Week 10 against the Chiefs. That is Sunday night, I believe. I'm not sure what 11, 14. No, yeah, it is Sunday night. Because they have, yeah. Oh, and actually, this week 1 is Monday Night Football against the Ravens. Week 4 is Monday night as well, I believe, against the Chargers. That's another thing that the stupid people that created this Raiders printable schedule, they didn't put what day of the week it's on. They just put the dates. Then you got to go up and look them up. So I don't know. And then the only other games I have starred here are week 15. That's that weekend. We don't know if it's a Saturday or Sunday game against the Browns. And then week 17 against the Colts. I think that is an interesting game that they could possibly win, even though I had them losing. So. Depth chart. Don't have anything about the quarterbacks. All 3 returning this year. Running back, they have a new backup for Josh Jacobs. Kenyon Drake coming over from the Cardinals. I was still perplexed by that signing. So I'm not sure how Kenyon Drake fits with the Raiders still. I don't know.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe the Raiders see something about Jacobs that we don't. Maybe they don't think that he can take the workload, so they wanted to get a guy that can take a lot of the workload from Jacobs and kind of do more of a committee approach than Jacobs being the bona fide number 1.
Yeah, I don't know. I just thought, they already had Jalen Richard, and he was their receiving back. I mean, Kenyon Drake definitely is going to help, like you said, get more carries off of Josh Jacobs' shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
That throws a wrench into fantasy, which we'll get to. Wideouts, 2 new faces here. John Brown coming over from the Bills. I didn't even remember that happened. So, but yeah, they lost Tyrell Williams to the Lions. They gained John Brown. They also gained Willie Snead from the Ravens. That one I do remember happening. It's going to be tough. I believe that Snead will make the roster. He's listed as number 6 right now, but it depends how many they keep at wideout, because they have Zay Jones and Willie Snead. They also have Trey Quinn, and then the guys that were doing well last offseason that had to get cut because they couldn't keep that many. Marcel Aitman and Keelan Doss as well. I know both of those guys, especially Keelan Doss, was a star on Hard Knocks last year. So,
yeah, I mean, they have a pretty solid receiving core, especially in terms of the depth. I mean, I've always been a fan of Willie Snead, even going back to when he was with the Saints a couple of years ago. I'm kind of surprised to see him as the number 6 receiver right now on the depth chart, but that could also be because he's kind of like that veteran invitee, and the Raiders prefer their own guys that they've already had. Plus, the other guys they brought in are better than him. But yeah, they got Henry Ruggs from last year's draft, and then they still have Hunter Renfrow for the slot. And then I don't know. I feel like the rest of the depth is up for grabs pretty much.
Brian Edwards, the number 2 right now. 3rd round last year. So
but like I said, they have really solid depth. I think they probably have the best wide receiver depth in the division, but they definitely don't have the most talent though at the position.
I love Hunter Renfrow. He's fantastic. He's so small, and that's why I love him.
He's the new Wes Welker, Julian Edelman type.
Yeah, they don't use him enough, I think, because they're more downfield passing with John Gruden and that Oakland, the Vegas offense.
Yep.
Offensive line, 2 new guys that they have this year. Rodney Hudson's replacement, Andre James, undrafted in 2019, has played 28 games in his career. I remember when Hudson got traded and everyone was like, what are they doing? And we still are like, what are they doing? Because they're going to a guy that has never started. But we'll have to see. One thing that I did like, though, that they did with the center position was they brought in Nick Martin from Houston. I know Deshaun Watson really liked Nick Martin. So I think that's a great addition as a backup and a backup plan. If James doesn't play too well in the beginning of the season, they can just install Nick Martin right away. The other new guy on the offensive line, Alex Leatherwood, 1st round pick this year, 17th overall. Another head-shaking draft pick from the majority of the people to Mike Mayock. So, yeah.
Yeah, Mike Mayock has definitely not been a traditional drafter, to say the least. But, a lot of his picks have worked out, though, but I don't know about Leatherwood, though. I didn't really like him coming out, as I'm sure a lot of other people had the same sentiment, but especially where he was drafted. I thought there was a lot better offensive linemen there. So, but we'll have to see. Obviously, there's a reason why Mike Mayock is the general manager of a football team, and we're just sitting here doing a podcast. But
yeah. We'll have to see. It's tough for me to draft a right tackle in the 1st round and inside the top 20, let alone. So, anyways, let's go to defense here. Quentin Jefferson comes over from the Bills, start at defensive tackle. They get Yannick Ngakoue at defensive end from the Ravens. I'm not sure about Yannick. He has never been the same since 2017 Jags.
Mm-hmm. There's a reason why he's been on 3 different teams in 3 years. So we'll have to see if he can kind of revive his career a little bit. But I just think his name alone, though, is going to be a reason for teams to circle his name on the, when they're preparing for the Raiders each week. But I think he's definitely an upgrade over what they had, but we'll have to see if he can actually perform and actually get to the quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, he came to a team that was starred for pass rush, so he's easily the number one. Yeah. Linebacker-wise, nothing to talk about with their starters. Same three guys as last year. Backup, though, they're another team that is just barren at the backup position for the linebackers. Now, what's weird is Jonathan Abram is listed as the backup Sam on the strong side linebacker, which I think I did remember them saying this offseason that Abram would play a little bit more linebacker than he did last year. But the other two top backups, Asmar Bilal is the backup to Corey Littleton on the weak side. Undrafted in 2020. He came from the Chargers because he played with them last year. Only 2 games, though. Very limited experience. And then James Onwualu is the backup to Nick Kwiatkowski in the middle. Undrafted in 17. He has played 16 career games. So, yeah.
Just continuing the trend of no depth at the linebacker position.
Yep, pretty much. I mean, I'll play for them if they want. Secondary-wise, only one corner to talk about. Casey Hayward Jr. coming over from the Chargers. We already talked about him a little bit when we were talking about the Chargers. But yeah, he by far solidifies one of their spots on the outside. Puts Damon Arnett, their first-round pick from last year, in the slot.
Yeah,
which I think is a good spot.
I could be wrong, but I feel like the AFC West they sign each other's players more than any other division does. I don't know.
Very much.
It's just maybe something I've noticed, but like I feel like they just interchange players more than anybody or any other division in football.
Yep. I did forget one other corner to talk about with the Raiders, but I couldn't remember if he was there last year or not. I don't think he was. Rasul Douglas. I believe he was still at the Panthers. So. I think he was still at the Panthers last year. So he comes over to the Raiders, fills their 4th corner spot. And then 2 safeties to talk about. Their 2 draft picks. 4th-round rookie out of Missouri, Tyree Gillespie, and 3rd-round rookie, Divine Diablo out of Virginia Tech. Now, what's interesting, Diablo is listed 3rd string. Gillespie is listed as 2nd string. Granted, they play 2 different positions. So that would make me think that Diablo isn't going to make the team as a 3rd-round pick.
I don't know. I mean, I think it was, like I said before with I think it was when we were talking about the Chargers, but teams like to keep their own draft picks regardless of performance in the preseason. So I could definitely see them trying him out at special teams and trying to see if he's valuable there before actually letting him go.
Well, unless they keep 5 safeties or they permanently move Jonathan Abram to linebacker, I believe they're keeping Carl Joseph as the backup strong safety.
Mm-hmm.
And they have Trayvon Merrick, who I forgot to mention, as a starter. Their other wait, no, he was second. Was he a first or second round pick this year?
Um,
Second, right?
yeah, I think second.
Yeah. Completely forgot to mention him. So, they're not going to let him go. They're not going to. And then Tyree Gillespie is the backup free safety. So, actually, I thought they were moving Diablo to linebacker, but they don't have him listed there. So that could help their linebacker depth. If they move Diablo to linebacker, that could definitely help there. All right, that's all the guys I had started as far as just looking over the depth chart in real football. Fantasy though, Derek Carr.
He's a
he
wild card.
consistently he consistently is a top, passing top in the passing yards, tops in touchdown. He's always up there. He's never at the top, but he's,
Yeah, I mean, he's another guy kind of. I think he's similar to Justin Herbert, but I think Herbert has much more upside than him. Because I think Herbert has a chance to be like the top fantasy quarterback, but with Carr though, yeah, I think he's a serviceable quarterback to be your starter, but I think he's definitely the middle of the pack there. I think he is kind of like that type of quarterback I was talking about before that I would probably target in those middle rounds so I could stack up on other positions first.
Yeah. I like Derek Carr as a backup. I probably won't draft him. I don't think I've ever drafted Derek Carr. So
Nope.
Running back, Josh Jacobs. Now, mentioned it a little bit when we were talking about the depth chart. Kenyon Drake throws the wrench into Josh Jacobs' fantasy value.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Josh Jacobs is a clear cut number one now. I think it's a low tier RB1, but I think his floor is as a high end RB2.
Yeah, I think he's definitely a solid RB2, but like you said, with Kenyon Drake being there, I mean, you'd have to think with them signing a guy like that, he's going to see significant playing time. So yeah, that takes away from Jacobs. And I mean, I've never really been a big Jacobs fan anyway. So I never really wanted to go for him, but yeah, he's definitely not going to produce what he has in the past. But
I think.
Yeah. What about Drake though? Do you think that he is at least worthy of a flex spot?
I mean, that's where you're gonna have to draft him for. I think at this point, I would only draft him as a handcuff to Jacobs. I think Jacobs is probably in my drafts. Probably Jacobs is the only one that I would consider drafting. Possibly John Brown. Actually, no. What am I saying? There's a guy at tight end. I forgot about him. But but yeah, I would say Drake right now. You have to draft him as a flex, and if you get Jacobs, draft Kenyon Drake too. Wide receiver wise, I think the top three are draftable. I only think two are going to actually produce enough to warrant being drafted, though. Henry Ruggs. I don't really like Henry Ruggs,
Nope.
but he is touted as the number one receiver now for the Raiders. My issue with Henry Ruggs is he has to show that he can run more than just a go route. He has to show that he can run the full route tree. And as a number one wide receiver, you have to be able to do that. So we've seen it. He already has a mold. If he can become Tyreek Hill, because that was Tyreek Hill's issue early on in his career, is that he did the same thing. He only ran deep and he didn't really run any other routes. And now we see Tyreek running all the routes. So I think if Henry Ruggs can do that and produce in different ways other than just going deep, then I would be more comfortable drafting Henry Ruggs. But at this point, he's a wide receiver 2 at best.
Yeah, especially with well, was he considered the number one on the Raiders last year, or was it Tyrell Williams?
I believe it was Tyrell.
Yeah, so especially with this being his first year transitioning to the number one and facing off against the number one cornerbacks and all that, I would probably stay away from him. But yeah, if I was to draft him, it would be more for the wide receiver 2 spot, or possibly even as a flex option if I can get him for that.
Yeah. Now Bryan Edwards, like I said, is the slotted number 2 right now. He is more of a possession guy. I'm just not so sure because he didn't play all that much last year. So I think you can draft Edwards just based off being the number 2 right now. I probably wouldn't. I would stay away. But if you have to, there's no other better options. And you have to go with the guy that's going to get the highest target share. Yeah. I would say with Bryan Edwards then.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a chance that he outperforms Ruggs when the season's over, at least in terms of fantasy points, because he is like you said, he is the possession guy. And I feel like Carr prefers to throw it shorter and have his receivers and tight ends run it rather than him throwing the ball deep. So I could see him going to Edwards more because Edwards isn't the deep threat like Ruggs is. But I think the fact that Edwards is going to be at best probably the third option, maybe even fourth if you want to count Josh Jacobs. But I think because he has so many other options in front of him, I think that's another reason why I wouldn't draft him right now. Or like you said, if I'm looking for somebody to just fill out my roster at the end of the draft, if he's there, maybe I would take him then. But I would hold off on him in the beginning of the season.
Yeah. But like I said, there are 2 guys that I think will produce. That is Henry Ruggs, and that is the third guy, John Brown. Now, John Brown, I think he came back. He made a career comeback really in Buffalo, and we'll have to see if it can continue in Vegas or not. But I like John Brown. I think he'll get enough targets as a flex option. And he's a veteran, so I think Derek Carr will produce some chemistry with him.
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of similar to Edwards in the fact that, I mean, we don't really know what's going to come from him yet. I mean, he is the wide receiver 3 right now, so I don't know if he's going to get as many targets as Edwards, but I think those 2 are kind of fighting for those extra targets that Carr is going to be throwing, because obviously the other targets are going to go to Henry Ruggs and Darren Waller. So, just like with Edwards, though, I'm probably not touching Jones, or not Jones, Brown, uh, unless it's at the end of the draft.
Yeah. All right. Defensively, no. I think their defense has gotten better. It's just they've
Still
struggled.
not playable.
Yeah, they just don't have a pass rush still. I like their linebackers. I think that's the strongest point of the team, and they have some names at secondary, but yeah, they need to produce a pass rush in order to be playable fantasy defense. And then finally, kicker Daniel Carlson. I like him. Has a decent leg. Raiders are a pretty good offense, I would say. And so, yeah, Daniel Carlson can be a starter. I think he's on that fringe, though. I think he's right there at, 12, 13 range.
Yeah, he's definitely like you said, he's on the edge of being a starter. And definitely he'd be an option for like the 1 week when your guy's on a bye kind of kicker. So yeah, I think he's definitely a solid option though, a kicker.
All right, let's go to the Broncos. I think you're up, Chris.
Yeah, so let's just see real quick with Denver here. So week 1, they start off against the Giants. That one to me is a really tough game to pick. Because I don't know. I feel like both of these teams are really similar. But I don't know. I feel like I'd have to give the edge to the Giants there. Only because, for one, it's at MetLife. And 2, I think they have the better overall team by a slight margin, especially with guys like Saquon and even Kenny Golladay coming over from Detroit. I think the Giants will come out and put up a big performance there against the Broncos. And I mean, the Broncos still have a decent defense, but it's nowhere near what it was a few years ago when they were in the Super Bowl and all that. So yeah, I think they lose week 1. I think they go down to Jacksonville and win against Trevor Lawrence. And then week 3 against the Jets, I think the Jets come in and beat them. So they're 1-2. Then they host Baltimore, and I think they lose that one. They go to Pittsburgh, they lose that one. They host the Raiders, and they can win that one. They go to Cleveland, they lose that one. And then after Cleveland, they host Washington. I think they lose that one. They then go to Dallas. They're going to lose that one. They host Philly. They're going to lose that one. Then they go to LA. They host LA. They're still going to lose that one. Go to Kansas City. They lose that one. they finally go on a little bit of a win streak here. I think they beat the Lions, and then they beat the Bengals, but then they lose out again, making their record 4-13.
Yeah, I have one game better. I have 5-12. Agree on most of them. There, I don't remember where we were different, but yeah, I got lost at MetLife week 1. They go down to Jacksonville and beat them. They lose to your Jets. They lose to the Ravens at Pittsburgh, home against the Raiders at Cleveland, home against Washington at Dallas. And then they do beat the Eagles at home. I think that's a trap game for the Eagles there. So yeah, 2-8 into the bye. They come out, lose at home to the Chargers, lose in Kansas City. They do beat the Lions and Bengals, both in Denver. They go to Vegas and to LA with the Chargers. They lose both. And then they do beat the Chiefs week 18. So that gets you to 5-12. Key games, week 1 at the Giants. I think teams are similar. Giants as a team overall is the better team.
Mm-hmm.
Week 3, the Jets. Now that is even closer of a matchup. That one, I think both defenses are very close. Skill positions match up well. I think Zach Wilson is the difference, though. I think it's a better quarterback for the Jets than it is in Denver, regardless of who it is, other than Aaron
Rodgers. Unless they trade for Aaron Rodgers, then that's a different story.
Then this whole thing is messed up. The next one I have is their Thursday night game against the Browns in Cleveland. They'll get rolled in that game. Yeah, the Browns should destroy them there. The other one, next one I have is the Eagles game. Like I said, I think that's a quality win for the Broncos. It's at home, so I think they have a good shot at it. The next two are back-to-back, the Lions and Bengals wins. I think they can beat both those teams, especially because it's in Denver. Both teams are. And then, like I said, week 18 is a key game for me as well. Just kind of a jumping off point into 2022, beating the Chiefs. I think it's a solid thing right there.
Well, in your scenario, though, would the Chiefs be resting their players there? Or would they actually beat, like, the actual Chiefs team?
They could be resting because, like I said, I have the Chiefs being one game up on the Chargers for the division. That's 425. Well, they're playing at the same time, so it's not like the Chiefs would know the result of the Chargers game before they played. But I still think the Chiefs would probably have the tiebreakers just based off who I remember each team winning and losing to. Because I had the Chiefs beating the Browns and the Ravens, and I had the Chargers losing to both those. So even if the conference record was matched up, it would go down to common opponents, and the Chiefs would win that tiebreaker. So I don't know. I just think, they should be fine. They'll have it. So Broncos depth chart quarterback Teddy Bridgewater coming over from the Panthers. Will he start week 1?
I mean, I believe he should. He's the best quarterback on their roster. But again, there is still the possibility of somebody like Aaron Rodgers being traded there. And if that happens, obviously Rodgers will be the starting quarterback.
Yeah, you don't like Brett Rippon,
Nope.
the guy who beat Joe Flacco.
Nope. I refuse to acknowledge his existence after he beat the Jets.
Running back, a couple new faces here. Second round rookie out of UNC, Javonte Williams, high dynasty draft pick. I don't know. Some people are asking the question, will Javonte Williams overtake Melvin Gordon as a starting running back?
I don't know about right away, but I could see a scenario in which he does by the probably by like week 12 or 13, I could see it happening.
Yeah, I'm just a big believer in Melvin. I like him. But we'll have to see.
I mean, I can't remember, but I feel like he had a pretty even split with Philip Lindsay when he was there.
Yeah.
But so you got to pretty much compare Lindsay to Williams. Like, if they are very similar in play and all that, then I could see it kind of staying as a 50-50 thing. But if the Broncos don't think that Williams is ready for that kind of workload, then I think that Gordon can still carry that heavy workload like he did when he was with the Chargers a few years ago.
Yeah, I think Williams is going to come into a comfortable situation because he was already in that type of situation with Michael Carter at North Carolina last year. Mm-hmm. So the other new running back is Mike Boone coming over from the Vikings. I never thought Mike Boone would leave Minnesota. Seemed like every preseason Boone was lighting it up. But he does come over to the Broncos. He'll probably be a fill-in for Melvin Gordon, short yardage. Mike Boone's pretty big back, has some power. So wide receivers, two guys here. Cortland Sutton coming back from injury. Let's see how he performs early on in the season, if he's fully recovered or not.
Yeah, I think him coming back will help the other guys in the room more than anything, specifically Jerry Jeudy and KJ Hamler, because obviously last year was their rookie year and they didn't have Sutton to kind of like lean back on, at least not on the field. He was probably still like in the locker room talking to them and stuff, but they didn't have him on the field with them, and that probably hurt their rookie years a little bit. So now that they have him back, I could see at least Jerry Jeudy having definitely a better season than he did last year.
Yeah, the other receiver I wanted to touch on was sixth-round rookie Seth Williams out of Auburn. He's a burner. I'll have to make the roster first. I think they will keep 6 just because they have to keep Deontay Spencer for his return ability. So, yeah. Nothing to talk about tight ends or fullback. Not much to talk about the offensive line either. They returned 4 of 5 starters. Their one new starter is right tackle Bobby Massey, coming over from the Bears this offseason after the Jawan James season-ending injury was whole fiasco. But I have notes. They are not anywhere near deep at the offensive line. So the 5 backups right now: I don't like the left side as much as I do the right side and center, but left side backup to Garrett Bowles. Calvin Anderson, undrafted last year, 2 starts in his career. Left guard backup for Dalton Reisner is Austin Schlottman, undrafted in 2019. He has 6 career starts. Quinn Miners is the backup to Lloyd Cushenberry at center. 3rd round rookie this year, Wisconsin Whitewater. Love Quinn Miners. he's our guy. Right guard backup for Graham Glasgow is 6th round, 2020 6th round pick, Natane Muti. He played in 4 games last season with 1 start. And then the right tackle, I like the right tackles though. Cam Fleming comes over from the Giants, solid. I believe he will be their swing tackle. He should be, anyways. He's done that the majority of his career. So,
yeah, I do agree with you though. The right side and center are definitely better than the left side. But the one thing I do have to say about the left side guys though is, despite their lack of experience, at least their experience is starting experience. So they had obviously significant playing time in the short amount of time that they've played. But yeah, that depth is very suspect.
Defensively, not many guys I start here. The backup nose tackle, Shamar Stephan, he comes over from Minnesota as well. I like that. They have a solid 1-2 punch with Mike Purcell as the starting nose there. Linebackers, Josie Jules, backup, 3rd round rookie Baron Browning out of Ohio State. I really like their, especially inside linebackers. I mean, actually, overall, their linebackers going too deep is pretty solid. Secondary wise, a lot of new faces here. They have 2 new starting corners. They get Kyle Fuller from Chicago and Ronald Darby from Washington. I'm biased because I like Fuller a lot better. And Ronald Darby was absolute trash for the Eagles. So I'm happy he went to Washington, and now he's got a 3-year deal with the Broncos. So
yeah, I don't really understand.
I still don't know why that happened. And then 1st round pick, 9th overall, Pat Surtain. The 2nd, gonna play slot his rookie year, most likely. But it's interesting that he would, because they do still have Bryce Callahan, who was their main slot guy before. So yeah, I'm not really sure how the corner snaps are going to work out this season with the Broncos, but because they have a lot of them, and they have a lot of quality.
I'm kind of surprised that he's the starting slot right now, because I mean, wasn't he like one of the best outside corners when he came out, or was he a slot corner in college?
I don't.
Or was he kind of? Did he kind of just move around a lot?
Play both. Yeah, he can play both.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. To me, he was still the best corner coming out of college, and I still think he should have been the first one going to Carolina. But yeah, we'll see how he can do. But I think that him starting out in the slot might actually help him, because in the slot he'll get a bunch of different receivers. Like some teams that'll be their number one, and some teams you'll never see them throw to the slot guy, so he won't have to do much in those games. So I think it's kind of like a good transition for him to come into the league and kind of see all different kinds of offenses there in the slot.
Yeah, and then I have one safety start here. It's their 5th round pick, Caden Stearns out of Texas. He's the backup to Kareem Jackson. Definitely a good person to learn from, Kareem Jackson. Granted, Kareem switched a couple of years ago from corner to safety after he came over from the Tech. But yeah, I like Caden Stearns. He's a hard-hitting safety, as far as I remember him at Texas. So, yeah, those are the guys I had start anyways. Fantasy-wise, we're not talking about the quarterbacks.
Yeah,
especially because I still have Drew Lock on a couple of my dynasty leagues.
Well, hold on to him and see what happens.
I forgot to check waivers to see if I got Baker or not. Poor Drew Lock in that one.
No, but I would hold on to Lock and see what happens with him, because I don't think he's going to start with the Broncos anymore. But let's see if they keep him as a backup or if they ship him off somewhere. But I'm sure I'm not the only one that expects Teddy Bridgewater to be the starter. But yeah, even if Bridgewater is the starter, I wouldn't touch him. Maybe if you're the last team to pick up a backup, but yeah, I wouldn't go anywhere near him.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I got any of my waiver claims. I don't even remember who I wanted in this league. I think this was my good roster, though. I think that's why there wasn't really anyone that I wanted. Yeah, that's my good dynasty roster. Let's look at the other dynasty roster that's not as good. That's where I really needed the waiver claims, and I put a significant amount of money down for these guys. Oh, dude, that guy put $82 to get Baker. Dang it. Well, one good thing is I got Samaje Perine for Carlos Hyde for $50. I also got Anthony Ferkser for $50 to drop Greg Ward. I don't know why you would spend $61. I have no idea why that guy spent $61 on Josh Palmer. Another guy spent $37 on Hunter Long. I got the Patriots defense for $20. Dropping the Brown. Like that one. I think that was the only other one I had. I had 4. Samaje Perine, Ferkser. Oh, and then I didn't get Baker because I didn't put enough. Dang it. All right, so I'm stuck with Drew Lock still. Granted, it doesn't matter. I don't need him right now. I have Tua and Carson Wentz. I'll be all right, I guess. I'm locked and loaded at tight end, though. That's what I like to see. Running backs, though, in fantasy. Now, Melvin Gordon is an RB2 because of Javonte Williams. Javonte Williams, first round, probably, right? Did you say the first round dynasty?
Yeah, he was probably one of the top position players taken. Because he wasn't available when I picked at number 6. I think he was like the 4th pick in our league.
Yeah. I would say in redraft leagues, I'm not sure if he's going to get drafted or not. think he's definitely one to look at and put on your watch list just to see in the first probably 2 weeks of the season.
Yeah.
Because everyone overreacts that first week, so just wait.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I like Gordon. He's obviously not that number one back that he used to be when he was with the Chargers. But like I said before when we were talking the depth chart, I think he can still carry a heavy workload. And I think his ceiling is low tier running back one. But he's definitely more suited for the running back two because of the presence of Williams. But again, I don't know what they're planning on doing in terms of the committee, if they're going to do something similar to what they did with Gordon and Philip Lindsay from last year, or if they're going to give the workload to Gordon and let Williams try to work his way in. But yeah, I like Gordon. I would put him as definitely as a running back too, but if he gets the bulk of the carries, I think he has a chance to be a low tier one.
I agree. Wide receivers. I am not drafting any of them. It'd be very hard to draft Jerry Jeudy and KJ Hamler after last year, especially with the mix and quarterback play. It's not spectacular. Cortland Sutton, you can draft. It's just going to be late, coming off the injury. What do we think about our one-year wonder last year, Tim Patrick, Chris?
I don't know if he's going to get the reps.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, is he listed as the fourth receiver right now, or is he lower than that?
Yeah, fourth.
So, I mean, he has a chance if Sutton or one of those other guys goes down. But, yeah, I mean, for me, I'm with you with Jeudy and Hamler. I wouldn't touch them, especially not Hamler in the draft at least. Jeudy, I could see being a waiver pickup in like week 2 or 3 if he shows that he can perform when he has a legit number one opposite him. But I would draft Cortland Sutton, but not as my number one or even my number 2 receiver. I would try to get him as my main flex or my backup wide receiver and hope that he performs up to the potential that he has. And then I put him in my lineup.
Yeah, I think you could get away with Cortland Sutton as wide receiver too. I think that's, but tight end Noah Fant. Now I like Noah Fant. Just again, it's the quarterback issue. But Drew Lock likes Noah Fant. So if Drew Lock's the starter, and we know that, then Noah Fant is a borderline tight end 1.
Yeah, I mean, that's also because of the lack of reliable tight ends around the league too. But I think even if Bridgewater is the quarterback, I think that he will become accustomed to throwing to a guy like Fant. And yeah, Fant, I think, will be a serviceable tight end. But he's another one that I wouldn't draft. Like you said, I would hold off on drafting him. And whether another team drafts him or if he's available on the waiver after the draft, I would wait a couple weeks, see how the Broncos offense is doing, see if they're targeting him at all, and see all those factors, and then maybe try and go and get him, whether, like I said, it's through trade or via the waiver.
I think you can draft him. I think at worst as your backup. Granted, if you're like me, you like going to get Kelsey or Kittle early on, and then you can draft whoever you want as your backup tight end for that 1 week that you'll need him. Defensively for the Broncos. Now this is interesting. The Broncos, I think, are a playable defense. They have solid guys at every level. I like their linebackers. D-line is probably the weakest part, but secondary isn't an issue either. So I think they're not the top right now anyways, but I would say they're probably in the 8 to 12 range as far as starting defense.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm a little lower on them. I don't think they're a top 10. I definitely think that they're more like the 12 to 16 range. So I think that they're more suited not for an every week defense, but they're more suited for the type of fantasy players that like to match up their defenses and rotate their defenses. So I would definitely prefer them in that role rather than my primary defense.
My thing with them is that just based off their schedule, they're not facing as many high octane offenses as the other 3 teams in the division are, because they're getting a fourth place schedule.
Mm-hmm.
You know, their biggest issue is going to be the division games. All 3 offenses in their division are going to be tough to stop, but I think they can, do a decent job against the Raiders. Chiefs and Chargers will probably get them, but other than that, the hardest offenses to play against are going to be the Ravens, Steelers, Browns, probably the Cowboys too. Yeah. But most of the other games, they should be sound defensively. All right, kicker. Last thing here, Brandon McManus, stalwart. I love Brandon McManus. He has one of the biggest legs in the league, especially playing in that thin air up there in Denver. He just kicks bombs every week. The issue is the offense isn't good, isn't the greatest because they don't have a quarterback. So I still think you can start him.
Yeah. I was going to say, I think that the offense is good enough to move the ball. I just don't know if they're good enough to score the touchdowns. So for him, you're going to have to rely on the field goals, which he's more than capable of doing. So I think he's a starter, I think, but he's a mid to low tier starter, I
think. Yeah, I'm okay with that. I like it. All right, that is our AFC West season preview. Just to recap, I have the Chiefs number 1, 13-4, Chargers second, 12-5, Raiders third, 7-10, and the Broncos last at 5-12.
Yeah, and for me, I'm not entirely sure who my division winner would be because, like I said, I had them 13-4, both the Chiefs and the Chargers. So I'd have to look at the tiebreakers. I think off the top of my head, though, I think the Chiefs would probably get it, making the Chargers the 5 seed there, the number 1 wild card. And then the Raiders, for me, were 8-9. mostly because of a tough schedule there, though. But I think they're a solid team, and a couple of those games could flip the other way. But and then the Broncos, like we've said, they have a solid defense, but that offense just has too much catching up to do, mainly with the quarterback position. So they were 4-13 for me, and they're
Yeah.
yet again in the top 10 draft picks.
Well, we won't have a show on Monday. I will be at team camp, be available on Monday. So next Friday, though, we will finish our season preview series looking at the NFC West. Kyler Murray, DK Metcalf. You got Trey Lance in San Francisco, and also Matt Stafford in LA with the Rams. So that'll be next Friday. And then we'll start into our fantasy ranking shows like we had last off season as well. Don't forget to follow us on all our social media at FAA Podcast on Instagram and Twitter. Chris will have our division records up this weekend. Also, FAApodcast.com. And don't forget to check us out on Spotify as well.